stand up and get ready to take a blow. You have the confidence that you can accept the blow.
As a point of interest, none of my men wear protection in groin. None.
After all, you wouldn't want your attacker to get injured.
That hurt my foot. He's been dealing with a little bit of a gastrointestinal issue. They've noticed some acid reflux that they're trying to get under control. It was a lovely curve ball. And it's a goal, Marco! Really nice ball. Nice execution there by Marco Farfan. We've seen him working on this all the time. Now looking to score on the road. He just came on. Dejan Joveljic after the PK is one by Cesar Rondon.
Good evening, everybody. You shall not pass. That's right. Martin Pass there with a great highlight from this past weekend's action as FC Dallas gritted out a 1-0 win at home against the Los Angeles Galaxy. We'll get to that. And since it's been a couple weeks because of travel and vacation and whatnot, we'll catch up too about the Real Salt Lake victory at Real Salt Lake for FC Dallas. So 2 wins in a row to kind of snap the rut they've been in. We have a lot to get into about that, about where FC Dallas is. A little bit of North Texas splashed in as well. And of course, we want to take your questions, your comments live here as we get going in Big D After Dark. I'm your host, Nathan Hill, at Nathan J. Hill. You can follow me there on the old tweet machine. Next to me is our good friend Ishmael. You can follow him at Belcora Ishma. Below me there is our buddy Tommy, at Tom_FC Dallas on Twitter. And finally, Jose Carmona Chico. That's right. You can follow him at El Chico Carmona on Twitter.
What's up, everybody?
Well, it's good. Hey, y'all, everyone send in your comments and questions. We want your feedback from these past 2 weeks, catching up. A lot of some interesting news to touch upon and things. But let's just get right into it. 2 wins in a row. I mean, things were pretty bleak for FC Dallas. A lot of draws, some drop points, some miserable results. We lost Copa Tejas, just disappointing. And then suddenly FC Dallas seems to put something together. Maybe not the offensive output that we would like, but they're shown in these past 2 games that they can do what they need to do to prevent the other team from scoring, and set up shop and protect a lead and come away with the full 3 points. So let's just start. What are the things that are giving you hope right now as an FC Dallas fan after these past 2 results? We'll start with you, Ishmael.
Well, I think with a lot of the losses and the ties, the drop points that were happening over the last couple of months, is that it was a lot of individual errors. I think the team defends as a unit, and when they all not make mistakes, when they all play intelligently and don't give a bad pass in the back that leads to goals, that's what leads to our clean sheets, to our wins. So that wasn't happening for a while. So it's good to see that the team's finally gelling again defensively. I think these last couple of wins are looking into a very difficult schedule coming up with 2 games on the West Coast, a game against Philly, a game at Nashville. Those are not easy games. Those are not guaranteed points in any case. So it's important to get these 2 wins to get that form, that morale back up. They're not the best results, but they're good results. And based off of what's been happening the last couple of months, that's really all we could ask for at this point. And it's very encouraging to see that the team stopped leaking goals in the final 15 minutes of games.
Good stuff. Tommy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the individual mistakes, as Ismail pointed out, we didn't have those last 2 games. We got goals, and I think the attention to defend, not letting up or, just relaxing. You didn't really see that last 2 games. We did see it from RSL in the same way that we gave up that goal to Austin. In the beginning of the game, just a simple pass in, bad touch, press, got the goal. Same kind of exact same play that happened with Cirillo and Nanu. Kind of led up and bad touch and gave up a goal. So it happens, right? So I think the reason to be optimistic for this team is the coaching. The coaching, I think, I said it before, I've been very impressed with Nico. His just demeanor, his style on the sidelines, and everything he's brought to the team. It hasn't been perfect. It's been a process. But it's going to take a while. And I think that's one thing is that, I'm guilty of it myself. I want things to be perfect on the first game of the year. And we all got to realize this is a new team just put together, a new coach, new coaching staff. He doesn't even know about Texas. I mean, he's still learning about the Heat. I think he's, that's coming around. But I think the reason to be optimistic is the good coaching. And I think just the good play. I want to point out, I thought Paxton had a great game. I thought Velasco had a great game. Farfan had a good game. Hara did some good hold-up play. We had some good play, some good play out there. So I think the roster is still ultimately very thin. And, maybe it's not going to be this year. It doesn't look like. But, a few more boosters to the roster can make this a big difference in the world.
Jose.
Well, I think it's exciting for us to see. No one's going to say, hey, you guys look great in winning. And some people will talk down in the manner that a team has won both of those matches. At the end of the day, it shows growth. It shows that Nico has learned, that once you take a lead, you don't have to do anything else. I mean, it's basically they've been blowing leads in our when we're in our slump. They were taking leads, and then they were basically blowing those leads, and he's discovered that, hey, okay, so we're good at scoring early. Once we score, we don't need to score again. Let's where is the depth on this team? Okay, we have minimal depth, but look at this last game. I mean, with Howard starting, you only really had one attacking option that was 100%, and then your other options were either less than 100% or green. So you're talking about Hader Obrian was really your only option in the attacking third off the bench, and then you were either going to get less than 100% Sibling or Cervania, or a green player like Benny or El Metcalf, because we all know Shun isn't getting anytime soon. So I mean, your options on attack are usually Hara is one of those. I would say it's two options, but with Hara starting, Obrian was it, and then you would hope you get anything out of whoever else came on. So where are your strengths? Okay, I know we're all not too happy with how Nanu's performing, but he is a solid option off the bench if inconsistent. So you got as a non-starter, I would say he's a solid option. As a starter, he's proven that he's less than ideal, but he's a solid option off the bench. So is Tafari, again, another player that makes mistakes, but again, he's not being asked to start. He's just asked to come in and close the game. You've got Quinones. You got even Eddie. You even got Munjoma, who, despite his quality of play this season, is a player who has ample experience playing in MLS. And then, of course, you got Surreal coming off the bench also. So your best options are in defense, and this team has been awfully good at taking leads. So I know if they got a bunker to win once you take the lead, then so be it. I mean, teams have driven that all the way deep into the playoffs, and It's not pretty, but it's effective, and I'll take it. I think it gives us hope that this team is a playoff team. Okay, we can argue where in the playoffs, but they look like a team that looks like will at least make the playoffs, and I think that's a boost for a team that people forget really was nowhere near the playoffs last year, and it's a sign that they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think with this team, what's interesting is that the range of where we could how we could play is very vast. And I think Nico has centralized it more by very like perfecting the sit like what Chico was saying, what Jose was saying, of sitting back and like defending a lead, and he's perfected it. Because when you look at the games like Miami or Houston or Austin, that we were bunkering by 60th minute. I think Nico doing that isn't based off of a desire to be frustrating against other teams. It's more of he's working with what he's got, and that's what I'm talking about. Range that this team, at a point right now where we still think it could be better, is in fourth place in the West, and yet we know that the depth of this team is very limited. Where if a midfielder got injured in this game, would have been disastrous for us going into Seattle and Portland. So it's really weird. It's a weird season where I think the team is playing could play better than they are, and they're in fourth place. And it's going to be interesting to see how this last stretch of games unfolds for this team, because I think out of all the stretches of games that we've had throughout the season, this is going to be the most difficult. And I know that's what most teams say at the end of seasons, but I think it's true. And testament to the team that LA Galaxy and RSL are teams that are literally in our range in the standings. They're right there. And these kinds of wins are 6-point games. They're not 3-point games. But that's also the same with Seattle and with Portland and with Nashville coming up, and then RSL in like a month and a half. These games, this isn't going to change. So if the team is able to grind out these 1-0, 2-1 results over the entirety of the rest of the season, as frustrating as it is knowing that this team could be better, that like Velasco's production could be better, that Ariola could be more consistent, that we could get our wing back to help even more. We saw Farfan, I think it was like his third assist of the season, but Tomasi in this game was specifically frustrating. Like, if everyone was producing at a higher level, we know we could be better, and yet we're in fourth place. So it's going to be interesting to see how the season unfolds.
Let's
I agree.
well, go ahead, Tommy.
Just real quick, I was going to say I agree with Ishmael's comments that we're in fourth place, but we're not playing the best that we can be. I mean, we all agree that Paxton's having a good game, but is Paxton getting assists and goals? No, he can, and I think he certainly can. He's going to get better. He will get better. I believe it. I mean, Jesus can play better. Ariola can play better. Velasco's just starting to see a little bit of juice in him with his passing. He had some really nice passings and dribbles in the middle of the field, but he can also play better. I think you can say that just about anybody on the team that can play better. And it's not that they're playing bad. It's just that they can get better, and they will. I think they will.
Well, let's jump into Nico's post-game kind of comments, his own reaction on the match, and see how he responded in his energy.
Well, I think there is a lot of things to improve today. But overall, very proud of the guys. Really, really proud of them. It's not easy what we are doing. We're playing against good teams, and we're suffering some moments in the game. And we're doing together as a team. And we've been present the last two games defensively. And now it's about our challenge, like if we can be present also when we have the ball, right? And then start opening and creating good angles and doing more things to have long possessions in the second half to kill the game. I think we had good counterattacks for score the second goal, and this is the way that we had to approach the second half because it was really, really difficult for us. We also had, it's not an excuse, but we had to adapt a different formation, different way to play because I have some issues with some players late on this week, and we had to make a different plan. But I think the guys did a really good job. We wanted to win at home again. We wanted to win for the fans, for our families, celebrate with them, a win together, because we owe that to ourselves first and to our fans and families. We were very close to win in other games, and we couldn't celebrate with them. and I think we owe to us and to them this win.
I think what I was intrigued by Nico's comments there was naming the second half issue of that has been a struggle point for FC Dallas, just as far as, okay, we get the lead, we're going in with some momentum into the halftime, but then the other team seems to make the adjustments, seems to push on the gas pedal a little bit more and sort of control possession in the second half, and FC Dallas just doesn't have a lot of success kind of clamping down on the game, controlling the ball, slowing things down, making the opponent play their way. And so I appreciate that he identified that it's challenging, that the team is trying to figure these kinds of things out. So I guess that's the question going forward for me. And we've already sort of been touching upon it. Is this sustainable? Is this the idea of this team? Is what it's going to be over the remaining games? Is it going to be stingy, which we saw at the beginning of the season? They were pretty stingy defensively, and we're going to be able to get out some results. If we do, then yes, we can go deep in the playoffs, because that's how you win playoffs. You get that goal, and you set up shop, and you absorb and you defend. Or you hold on for those penalty kicks, kind of a thing. So, what do y'all think? Is this sustainable for FC Dallas?
I would say so. Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I was going to say, as long as the team stays healthy, we have such a thin bench that I honestly believe that the slump that we're in had a lot to do with the injuries to the back line. Clearly, our back line was less than 100%. We're forced to play players like Munjoma, start Nanu, start Tafari, or forced to yank either Hedges or Martinez out early, and the health of this team will determine whether this team can go can make a run into the playoffs. Because like I said, I'm pretty excited about how they're playing and this and that, but at the end of the day, they're still not healthy, and just we got a short week. We got 3 games within 1 week, so that injury list could grow, and if that happens, then that hurts this team significantly more than some of their teams that they're chasing in the playoffs that are in the playoffs. So as long as this team can remain healthy and avoid players missing multiple games to injury or nagging injuries that keeps them from being less than 100%, and that's what it'll come down to. It's the health of this team. As long as this team is healthy and Nico has his options, this team currently batting 500 on the road, by the way, that's usually the mark of a playoff team. And this team has proven that it can win by either attacking or being stingy defensively. It has proven it can do it now if they can just stay healthy. And that's the big if. If this team can stay healthy, then they have a shot.
Well, I was going to say, yes, they can, but, there's a little luck involved. As you remember, against the Galaxy, Chicharito had a header that should have went in the goal. He didn't hit it down. He hit it right over the post. He got a little lucky there. But also, FC Dallas had a few shots, attacks in the box that they didn't cap.
Let me counterpoint you real quick on that. I was checking out some LA Galaxy previews of the Dallas game, and there was one that I didn't bother watching, but the headline was basically, it was a podcast, and their comments on the Dallas game was, LA Galaxy doesn't win in Dallas, so now what? That was it. That was basically, so what are we going to do? Because they're basically admitting that, hey, the Galaxy, for all the success they've had, traditionally struggle coming to Dallas and getting wins. And so they were basically, that was their talking point is, we don't win in Dallas. So
I remember that. I remember when they came with Landon Donovan a few years back, and he had a PK against the Peruvian goalkeeper, and the Peruvian keeper saved. I can't remember his name right now.
But I'm just saying the Dallas, call it luck, call it whatever, they tend to have it against the Galaxy, and we've swept them now, I believe, this year. And I'm just saying, I'm okay with the team being lucky, and like you said, we will need some
Yeah,
lot going
the year
forward.
that
So
we
carry
won
on.
the year that we won the US Cup, right? We went through Galaxy and went over there, and we brought it home. But anyway, what I was gonna say is that a little luck, but also that FC Dallas is still not hitting on all cylinders when it comes to attacking. We're still leaving, just like Jesus had the one-on-one with the keeper in Houston and didn't score. We had that same situation against the Galaxy. We had a few 4-on-3 where, there was one point where Paxton dribbled up the middle and Areola was just kind of watching the game and didn't go into the box and he was late and then an errant pass. I mean, we're still not capitalizing on those little plays that would bring us 2-0 and make it a lot easier to defend and win than staying on 1-0. Remember the other games that we had. How many chances did we miss where, we kicked it right at the keeper? So, but I think that's also growing pains. I think, Coach will address, if we see it, Coach sees it, and I know he'll address it. Everything that we've seen as a fan, we know that Coach is addressing. The big one that I read about was the closing of the game, that they had to practice just about closing the game and being, urgent to defend every little thing, because we saw Tafari take off, we saw so-and-so take off, and we lost silly goals, right? So I think that, yes, we can, if we, especially if we start scoring a few more goals instead of just having 1-0, we're up 2-0, that can make a change. But then again, the roster is still paper thin. So there is that thing that, you can only go so far with a thin roster. So, but it's flip a coin right now.
Yeah. I would like to address the attack thing later on.
I think what's we keep talking about how the team isn't firing on all cylinders. I don't think it will in this season. I don't think they'll reach their potential because there's still so many gaping holes on this roster. Specifically, what happens, Hara can, in this game lasted 45 minutes if I'm being generous. And when Jesus plays up top, the midfield and the attack are somewhat disconnected, as we've seen for the last 2 months, that there's issues there. And I think with this team, a lot of these grind out performances that we see, the last 2 weeks, the team is overperforming in some aspects and underperforming in others, and that makes me think that this team is probably a borderline playoff team playing above expectations. So grind out results have been we saw at the beginning of the season, and right now will work for this team, and it can work, and we can get lucky, but we can also get unlucky. A game like the game against NYCFC or the game against Minnesota in May, those were games that we were dominating, and we can get unlucky too. So if we're going to rely on grit, I'm okay with that. If we're going to be relying on luck, then that's another issue, because this team, it can win on luck, it can get to playoffs on luck, but that's not sustainable, and you can't put your chips for that. It won't. That's a risky play. So I think as the team gets healthier, because right now it's still not at 100%, as Jose was saying, I don't think we've been healthy for a while now. But even when we were healthy, the games against Minnesota, the games against Vancouver, we were healthy, and we did not play well. So it will be better. It will be better as the team gets healthier. Hopefully, players like Facu, Siki, Cervenia are more available. But issues about disconnectivity between the attack and the midfield, the attack being inconsistent, we're starting to see limitations that Jesus can either be scoring one or twice a game or disappearing in some games. And we also see that Areola, although he's much better than he was with DC, he is still streaky. So, and Velasco isn't going to put numbers for you, especially this season. So the team will get healthier, and the team will have more depth. The depth right now is a serious concern, especially if the injuries keep going. But over time, hopefully the injuries will get better. But the issues still persist. And against the teams that we're facing in the next couple of months, that can be consuming, especially in this crunch time right before the playoffs.
Okay, so I want to address the attack and depth, and I'm going to say right now that our depth issues are in fact what's hurting our attack. The reason the team can start strong, but often fails to put teams away, is because some of our key players are not 90-minute players. Velasco has proven that he's not a 90-minute player. He's not a guy that can give you a full game without fatiguing. You could probably say the same about Tsiki and Cervania. And then Ahara is definitely not a 60-minute player.
Barely 45, if that.
And but let's look.
Well,
let's look
in
at
this heat,
three
I don't
players.
think anyone's going to go 90 minutes every game, right?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to address that, and that leaves you with three players that are 90-minute players in Arriola, Jesus, and Paxton. And here's the bad thing about that, because this team has very little depth to alleviate these guys. They're suffering from too much load, too much game load, and that fatigue is only going to get worse as the season progresses. I think you already started to see them fade. Yes, they can go the 90 minutes, but can they go the full 90 minutes without losing a step, without losing sharpness? And I think that's what you're seeing. That's you're seeing in these games is, yes, they can go the 90 minutes, but you have to talk about the game load on these guys, specifically at Paxton, where our midfield is so thin. I'm happy to see him go 90 minutes, but it also concerns me that he's getting so much playing time. It concerns me that there's no third center fielder, center forward, so that when Jesus has to rest and Jara has to start, who comes in when Jara, fades after 45 minutes? Same thing with Arriola. You got Obrian. Obrian can alleviate Arriola, but then who's going to relieve Velasco? And that's where the attack, that's why it's fading late, is because you got your three guys that can go the 90 minutes and they're fading and there's nobody to give them proper relief. And then the other players have to be replaced because they're not 90-minute players. So it's an issue.
Coach took out. Go ahead.
I'm just saying it's an issue with the depth that's affecting the attack, and why the attack is so good in the first half, and then it's Nico is really wise to basically lean on the defense in the second half if they can get a lead, because the attack's going to fade anyway. They've proven consistently throughout the season that they're not a team that can finish strong, and like I said, that's basically for depth. I mean, I'm a big fan of Benny, and I know I'm not bragging. I know he played just cleanup minutes down the stretch, but it says a ton that it's Benny that's coming in to get those kind of those mop up minutes, and not Elmed Kahar, not Thomas Roberts, not Shun. That tells you a lot that it's Benny that's coming in, and that tells you our problems with our depths, all the problems you need to know about our attacking depth right there.
Yeah, well, it's a concern for the end of the year for the postseason, because if they're getting tired now, how are they going to be at the end of the year? And against Galaxy, we saw Velasco and Jesus had to come out because they just couldn't go anymore, and he brought in Obrian and
yes, and that's to my point is at least Velasco is getting a chance to rest, and he's going to always give you those 60-70 minutes, but I'm more concerned about the guys with the heavy loads, Jesus, Arriola, and Paxton. Those can lead to injuries later in the season, and that's our concern for us. Is we need to give those.
They don't have another Paxton on the team.
Yeah, and I think just to close
off
this thing about depth. Yeah, I think close off this thing about depth is that this shows that, if we're being completely honest, this roster, this cap, the way that the roster and the cap are right now was so poorly built early on, and maybe showing Zanotta's inexperience with MLS, because you should not have bench players that cannot contribute to
right.
Not be a thing. Like, I know there's a lot of fans asking for some signings, but the fact that we're loaning or selling Sean is the only way we can open up cap space is genuinely concerning. That's insane to me. Like, we have 5 open roster spots. So much money was put into players that are either ineffective or are not worth their value. And then the depth doesn't have, the value of these players is even worse. So as we're looking to improve this team, if we're able to get Shun out in the next 3 days, which seems unlikely, like before the transfer window closes, if we're able to do that, and Third Degree is talking about how the team is interested in a player on the allocation list, which is probably Larea, or some of us are dreaming about Grazo or something like that, or maybe a Brooks. It's just, it tells me a lot that even with Zanotta's successes, next season is, like, we keep saying that this year is the test for Zanotta, this year is the test. Next year really is the test, because a lot of these players, a lot of these contracts, including Hara, are going to be alleviated. So how is the depth going to look next year? You can't go another year like this. You can't go another year where 60 minutes you just sit back because your attack doesn't have good enough subs. That's not a recipe for it.
Agree
Well, I was
with
going to say,
that.
it's hard to believe that LA Galaxy can sign Bale and the Chinelli, but we can't have a superstar, but our roster is full and we have players who can't play.
Well,
It just doesn't make any sense, right? I
there's-
don't know that I agree that we're against the
there's
cap.
a-
I think that's more of a.
There's the reason the LAs and the New Yorks of the world get those players is because, sure, you're not giving them a big salary, but they can sign major endorsement deals in those cities that they cannot get here. You know, and that's like kind of the unspoken truth about that. Okay, yeah, they signed him and he's not a DP. I guarantee you he's making DP money as far as real money in endorsements, because it's a bigger market. I mean, let's face it. If there's
Austin's not a bigger market. Austin's not a bigger market.
not Austin. I was talking about LA and New York, but Austin is an expansion team awash with, funny money, and it's not a coincidence that you've seen the LAFCs, the Austins, the Atlantas come out strong in their first couple of years, even if because of all that funny money that's available to them, and they're able to shrug off roster mistakes a lot easier than most teams because they're expansion teams, and so they MLS wants to succeed, so they're gonna, it's in their interest that these teams come out strong, and I'm not okay. So Austin, okay, I'm very happy that Texas has a competitive team to push Dallas, but we'll see about how they're doing 3-4 years from now. Like, look at Orlando, they came out strong and faded, and so on and so forth. So Nashville did a slow burn. Look at Minnesota, it took them several years. So Atlanta came out strong, and now they're fading. So it'll come around. It's just there's a lot of funny money that the expansion teams get because MLS is invested in them. And I'm not surprised that Austin's doing good. I mean, I'm surprised how good they're doing. I'll say that.
I think they've been a little lucky. I think FC Dallas played them better both games, and not even close. Yeah. FC Dallas was the better team.
Yeah, but like I said, and they're lucky, but sometimes it's lucky. It's not where you are in the table right now; is where you are at the end of the season.
And there's this. Not that I'm a MLS salary roster rules guy or quite grasp it all, but like there may be a downside when we sign these guys on loan, that we can't pay down their cap in the same way, or their cap hits differently to the salary, so we don't have as much room to wiggle around. But maybe, but then meanwhile, maybe the front office doesn't want to buy guys like this, and so they want to do these mid loans and try to work it out. And so there's upsides and downsides.
I have an opinion on this that I disagree with the way it's being portrayed, that we don't have money to sign players. I disagree with that. I know it's been said. I know Dan, and I know a lot of people have said it, but I think it's the way it's being said. And if you listen to the general manager, to Zanotta and to Nico, it's not that they don't have money to bring in players. Now, you say we've got about 5 roster spots. I'm sure they have enough money to bring in 5 homegrowns or players that are around 100,000 or less. But Nico and Zanotta have said they don't want those kind of players. They want a player that can come in and give them a significant minutes on the field, that player's not going to cost. They can't afford that player. That player's going to cost them, 600, 700K to get a player like that to come in midseason, unless you get lucky. But if you're talking about a solid player that's going to come in and push players for starting minutes, it's not going to come in the cheap. It's not going to come in 100, 200, 300K, and I think that's what they're getting at, is they don't have the money to bring that kind of player unless they clear up another,
And
200,
isn't that an
300K.
issue? Don't you think that's an issue?
It is an issue for this roster build. Yes, I agree, but I'm just saying, in the past, FC Dallas was more than happy to go get a player that's going to cost us that low. They were more than happy to bring in the Clavijo specials midseason that they got on the cheap. Yes, there were big names, but they were off injuries or something like that, or players that never made it. And all these guys are saying is, we don't want to bring in those players. We're not going to bring in a Clavijo special. We're not going to bring in a homegrown because there's no Pepe or anyone like that in the homegrown that's going to come in and give us minutes. And so they're saying, you know what, we're not going to do it. But we don't have enough to bring in a player that can give us, that can push Tuamasi for a starting spot or push Cervenia for a starting spot or anything like that. That kind of money, the players they're interested in. And mind you, they're not going to go sign a MLS veteran, because that MLS veteran is going to be that kind of player that I'm talking about, that Clavijo special. They don't want that. They want a player that's going to come in and impact the roster, and it's going to be a young player with upside, because that's what Dallas goes after. They're going to, it's going to be a 21, 22, 23-year-old that they can hopefully resell in the future. And they're saying, we're not going to bring in just a body.
My point wasn't that the team should be signing 18-year-olds from Deportivo Cali again and again and again. That's not my point. That's definitely not my point. Is that you're having players like Roberts, you have players like Sean, you have players that the team made an effort, not even 3 years ago when we were having issues between Dan, Zanota, and Lucci. I'm talking about recent signings. Players that have a decent cap hit that are now making it so that the team cannot improve. And we understand that Zanota is working under difficult circumstances. This is a difficult market to bring players. You're working on a contract like Jara, but again, these are the constraints that he's working with. Then maybe don't bring Roberts back, try to negotiate a salary or do something. My point is, if the team is at 25 players currently at the roster, if the team cannot sign players with the 5 open roster spots that they have in the middle of the season, when teams are signing players, most teams in this league have been signing players to improve themselves during the summer. If the team can't do that, then that is an issue with the roster build. And not all of that is on Zanota, but he is not blameless. And that is something that needs to be recognized, especially now that next year, Jara will be gone. That's $3 million open in cap space. So,
okay, and let me address that. $3 million is open in cap space. Nanu goes. So do you want to fill in the 5 roster spots that you have open this year with players that are basically just going to take up spots? You're probably only going to get players that are going to need 2 or 3 years before they can roster. Or do you leave them open, ride it out with the roster you have, and when all that money frees up next year, now you can go out and be aggressive and get multiple players, not just one for one, not just a replacement for Jara, a replacement for Nano. Now you can take that money from those guys and bring in 3, 4, 5 players instead of a 1-for-1 approach. I'm just saying, I don't agree with it. I know we. The point is that I think Dan Hunt is happy if the team is just sneaks into the playoffs, and he's saying, hey, if we can build on this and if depth's the issue and we can address the depth next year and we can make the playoffs this year, let's do it. And I think that's what's going to happen. with this roster build is they're going to say, hey, if it gets bad enough, we'll just loan some players up from North Texas, and we're going to ride it out. And I know we want the help, but I'm just saying, is there an issue with the roster build? I think the roster build was designed to basically, hey, we'll just bring in some bodies like Dallas usually does. And they're trying to say, no, we need to come up with a better build. And I think that everyone's learning. And all the roster spots, if they're still open next year, then it's a legitimate
I just think it's not one extreme or the other. We shouldn't be filling up 5 roster spots right now with North Texas SC guys and 18-year-olds from South America. But we also shouldn't be in the position that none of these spots are getting filled, or 1 or 2, at this point in the season. It should not be a thing. It's, again, I understand the reality right now.
It isn't. I agree. But let's say you go and get some homegrowns. They can afford them. Let's say you fill those spots with homegrowns. You already have Roberts is getting any playing time. You already got Shoons not getting playing time. Manjoma is not getting playing time. El Medkihar, there's no homegrown out there that's better than any of those players. And that's the problem right now. The problem is Dallas is not willing to sign those players to FC Dallas when they can just sign them to North Texas. And that's, I'm just saying, it's a problem, but it's not a problem that's going to be addressed this year. And I think as far as the whole comments about the Thursday, I think is the transfer window deadline, I think that's for incoming, not for outgoing. So Shoon doesn't have to be gone by Thursday. Just nobody can be brought in after Thursday. Shoon can still be gone after Thursday.
It's incoming. Yeah, it's incoming. Because, like, LA Galaxy are trying to sign Puig before Thursday.
Exactly. So all I'm saying is Dallas is still trying to get rid of Shoon. They may not get rid of him by Thursday, but they're going to get rid of him. But that's not going to help us this season. That's going to help us for next season if it's not done by Thursday.
Well, and I think
don't forget we still have Bartlett.
Yeah,
he's not doing that shit. He has one more contract. He's doing it. So.
Yeah, and I think you can still. I think as far as Thursday, I think it's for transfers. But if there's a free agent, you could still target somebody like that after that potentially. But I could be wrong about that. So yeah, I think.
What about Parker?
It's an interesting.
Parker is solid. I mean, he's a player that was always going to play a full season in North Texas, and he needed it. He's 19 years old, and Farfan is playing so good. Parker's a player that I think would be loaned up from North Texas this season if needed, and could give you solid minutes. But you're not going to pull him away from North Texas this year. He's going to play in North Texas this whole season, and then next year he'll be on the senior roster. And if he's sent back down to North Texas, then we have an issue. But more than likely, if he's not good enough to give us minutes next year, he gets the Hernandez treatment where he gets loaned out to USL Championship, and that's not a bad way to go either way. I mean, don't forget that Cervania and some of those players did loans in the USL Championship at some point, and that's helped this team.
So, sorry, Nathan, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But no, it's fine. I mean, I think, I would love to see if Parker, is ready to contribute some. He'd be a great backup to Farfan and still give him time, and he'd probably get some minutes here and there. But also, I'm really high on Colin Smith as that right back, who is just growing and is showing some versatility, and I think could be someone who comes in and kind of works his way into the first team picture next year. So
again, another raw player, and that's just it. Is as exciting as North Texas is, and as talented as they look, they're still very green, and those players are not going to help FC Dallas this season. They're players that we hope can make the jump next year, but this year, I mean, just enjoy them and say, hey, these kids look like they have a future. And hopefully next year they can come in and help. But I think this year, like I said, players from North Texas are only going to help in emergency.
I think there are trades to be had within the league. I think as we get closer, I think there's going to be some other teams that are going to want to free up some space. And that's why I hope that FC Dallas is looking at those. And I know they may not be long term, they may not solve all the issues, but just to have have some guys who know MLS, who know how to compete in this league.
My problem with the trades is if Dallas can pull off a trade, it's going to be a like for like trade. Like let's say somebody wants Quinion, okay, you're going to trade him, but now you haven't really fixed anything. You're going to bring in someone that hopefully plays better than him, but you're still going to have the depth issue. So that's my problem with trades in MLS. You're going to have to give up a player, and this team can't afford to give up players. They need players, and the draft picks are, a lot of teams don't really care for them. I mean, Dallas is one of the few teams that cares for them. So as far as trade, you're basically going to have to unload somebody, and I'm not sure that's, like I said, they have to work some magic.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's why it's confusing. It's a lot of questions. But let's keep the show rolling here with and turn our attention to North Texas. North Texas, just like FC Dallas, was in a bit of a bad run. In particular, they got smashed by Sporting Kansas City too in one of the shocking games. I think Sporting Kansas City too has been awful, but somehow put 4 goals past FC Dallas, and so. To welcome back at Choctaw Stadium this weekend, North Texas welcomed SKC2 and took care of business. A 3-0 win. Kumungo, classy goal. I mean, it's just such a fun team to watch. If you don't mind the cameras, let's listen to Coach Ka here respond to kind of the game and how it went.
A little bit of a chess game, but we kind of slowed down a little bit, but we see the house, we see the first half, and then we responded well in second half. And I think after not winning 4 games, the boys may think things might creep in their head, but their mental focus, what they've been given the whole this week in practice and the way that they played has been fantastic. So for me, I'm very, very proud of the performance that they put, because it was a great team performance, and when you're not been winning, that's what you look for, right? For us, we told them that today was very important that we work together as a group, to finish off the month of July, because it has not been nice to us, But I mean, them going through these adversities is just great for their career, for who they are as person as well, because these are the teachings that we try to teach them, and these are the experiences that they will learn from and get better at.
Coach Ka has been big about these moments, teaching the team, helping them learn to be pros, close out games, fight, work hard, just all the things that you need to do to really make it to the next level. So I've always been so impressed with him and impressed with what he's doing in North Texas. Really, this North Texas team can be one of the best in MLS Next Pro when they are clicking. But then also they show their youth, they show their rawness, they show it's a team that can struggle. Backline that's been all over the place at times, but an attack too that can just absolutely dominate you and take over a game in just a moment. So, Jose, big win for him this weekend. Get back on track. What's your gut when the season comes to a close? Is North Texas gonna be in a playoff spot?
The answer is yes, and I'm gonna explain the last. Before this win, they had a 4-match winless streak. The only loss that I consider shocking is the Sporting Kansas City loss, which was a 4-2 on the road. But then that was followed with a 3-1 loss against San Jose. Now, that's a game that was tied 1-1 as they were heading into the half, and then Hope got a red card, and they played a man down the entire second half, and not surprisingly lost that game. They followed that game with a 3-3 draw against Houston, who's a good team and also has already proven that they're good enough to beat North Texas even at home. So that's not a bad result. And then they traveled to St. Louis, and they were never going to beat St. Louis in St. Louis. So it's just they hit a really tough stretch combined with the red card, bad luck, and really it looks bad, but it's not that bad. I mean, this team has never been the most talented team in the league, never has. They're just a well-coached team with enough talented youth that although inconsistent, they have a lot of parts, and the coach maximizes what he gets out of all his players. They got a lot of depth, and they got excellent attackers. But I mean, the fact that this team continues to rotate backlines is just ridiculous. I don't know any other team that can get away with that for an entire season. And I want to add that I'm kind of glad that they went through a bit of a slump, because my concern is that North Texas wasn't going to make any additions to the roster. They still haven't made any additions, by the way, as we head into the second half, because they were having it so well. They were doing so well that I was afraid they're going to say, oh, hey, we're clicking fine. We don't need any additions. And they need to make those additions because the other teams are making additions. The advantage that North Texas had that's going to fade as the season progresses is that North Texas was already a well-gelled team before Coach Ka showed up. They play in a system. They play like they practice the senior team. So do the academy kids. So all the players that return and the players that add, they all practice and they all understand what's needed from them. And so you get consistent play from such a young team. But as other teams are starting to gel, you're starting to see Tacoma is now currently the number one team after they crushed St. Louis. I mean, they just blitzed those guys. And they have the number one attack in the league, if I remember correctly. They're starting to gel. St. Louis is starting to gel. All these other teams that were struggling are beginning to gel, and that advantage that North Texas had over those teams is going to fade. So it's going to be a grind. They're not going to be a number one seed or 2 seed, but they'll likely come in as a 3rd or 4th seed. They're good enough to get into the playoffs. I'm not so sure that they're good enough to challenge for the title unless they make some additions. And I want to point out that Tariq Scott was on the bench last match. He must be back from the whole Bayern experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping they sign him. I mean, I'm hoping they sign Tariq Scott. I'm hoping they sign Santi. And some kid played that I hadn't seen before. Aguilar started this last game, and I thought he looked pretty good. So I'd like to see. That's a team that I would at least hope they add some homegrown type signings, because I think that really would help that team. And like I said, it'll be a playoff team.
One of the things I'm liking is that even though the defense is shifting a lot, like you're getting you're getting Bartlett and Nice coming in sometimes. Araneda and Amidume specifically are getting most of the reps. And that's something that we haven't seen with this North Texas SC, is like a center back pairing that I think has long years to develop, but is going to probably be the same in the next 2 years, because I'm pretty sure with the time that they've given Amidume, they're going to sign him from Pacific FC, and I don't think the Pacific FC has any plans for him. So having those two grow into the position, having the growing pains, like Araneda, you could definitely tell in the last KC game that he is not a naturally born center back. Like, he has some issues. But like we already know the attacking players that could make the jump. I honestly hope that the front three make the jump. Like, I think they Hope and Mulatto and Kumungo can all make the jump to MLS. Maybe not start and get loaned to USLC, but they could make it. They should. I think they've deserved contracts. But this defense is very interesting, because it seems like, although Jose is right that shifting a lot, that it's mainly Parker, Amidume, Araneda, and Smith, and that's a defense that has long years before they can play in MLS, but that are here for the long run, and that next year they're going to continue to play, I think, because I don't think Smith, even though we're having issues at right back in FC Dallas, I don't think he's ready for the MLS jump yet. Parker, with how Farfan is going, he's probably not going to play next year. So those four are a long-term project, and they are not perfect by any means, but you can tell that they have physical traits specifically that are very promising. That as long as they develop and nurture their skills that they can become MLS players in the future, I think.
And I want to point out that for all the success that North Texas has had, they only really have 5 players that are every game starters as long as they're available for the game. And that's Carrera, Parker, and the 3 attackers, Hope, Kamungo, and Mulatto. And that's it. Everybody else, I mean, yes, Smith is getting minutes, but he's been rotating with Pope at that position. So he's not a lockdown every game starter. And interestingly, sometimes they start together with either Pope or Smith playing at the right as a right mid, which I like to see Smith focus on just being a straight up right back, but that is something that's happened with those players, and at that young age, I mean, I guess if they're capable, then why not? But really, they rotate everybody else. And there's only, like I said, there's only really 5 players that you could say are lockdown starters. Everybody else,
that may be like the perfect like coach situation too for these coaches that preach about competition week in and week out. It's not just they're not rotating just to keep guys fresh. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but it's like, hey, show me in practice, and you're going to earn a spot. That's a great thing. It can be frustrating for a player who's like, hey, I should be getting minutes here. I have more, like maybe a Colin Smith, but no, I think Colin even loves it. I think he just means he just wants to grow and get better and compete each other.
And that gives chances to players like Aguilar and Orzua, who played like the last 2 games, even though they weren't pretty. Like that's what's needed. Like that's if your spot's not locked down, that means that other players will get opportunities. And as fans, that's encouraging to see, because that's something that's been like the last. Again, we know what COVID did, but for the last 2 years before this season, it was mainly like a core group of like 16, 18 guys. It was basically it. And now we're starting to see what it should be used for, where the players that, of course, are scoring 11 goals this season, like Kamungo, yeah, you start. But players like Cope and Smith, you start to see them shaping who's like rotating, playing a couple different positions. When Waldeck plays poorly, which is quite often, you get Orzua and Aguilar who get the opportunity to play in a professional setting, and that's what this team should be used for specifically. Yeah,
and I want to say that one thing I appreciate, one change that's happened this season that we used to see in previous seasons that hasn't happened this season, and the team has remained strong on that, is that they're not sending down players from the senior team unless they're loaned for the entire season, like Smith and Parker. And Bartlett, those guys are loaned for the season, and they're not moving back and forth. And in the past, they would send down, a player that wasn't getting minutes with senior team, like Pepe or Cervenia or someone like that, or Cerrillo, to get minutes with them. I'm just saying, but they would, and they haven't done that. They Munjoma isn't being sent down. El Metgahar isn't really being sent down. Shun, none of these guys that are on the senior roster are being sent down, and I think that's good. I think that's saying, hey, that's establishing a level and saying, hey, once you're out of North Texas, you're not going back. You either sink or swim, and we're not going to be the other, like you see the other teams in MLS giving senior roster players, getting them loaned down to the reserves to play minutes so they can stay in shape or whatever. But no. FC Dallas is not doing that, and I'm all for that. You give those minutes to the academy kids. You have a lot of talent in the academy, but you don't have any home run, HG signings coming up. So let's find out which kids can play, and that's the only way you're going to find out is by giving them minutes, and you can't have those minutes being eaten up by players who are already in the senior roster. So I applaud FC Dallas for sticking to their guns and not, giving those minutes up to players that are already on a senior roster.
Well, I think we need to leave it here tonight. We've had a good conversation. We got a big week, a Tuesday night game against Seattle.
I was going to say, we're going to talk about the Seattle, at least Seattle.
Yeah, well, sure.
Predictions, right?
Yeah. So what do you guys think of Seattle? I'll tell you what I think of mine.
I think there are points to be had this year. There, it's always a tough place to play. I saw the news that Felipe Mora, well, he's a Timber player though. I think right. He is out for the season. So there's always things like that are happening to these teams, depending on who's healthy and whatnot, that could be something in our favor. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm hoping. I would love just a 0-0 draw at Seattle. Just love a gritty, kind of boring game.
Seattle has had 4 losses in the last 5 games. They are still the same talented team that won Champions League. So they can definitely win all of those games that they lost. It was poor specific individual performances that led to those losses. But, I mean, that doesn't need to stop against FC Dallas. So, I mean, if we're talking about grinding out and sitting back after the 60th minute, scoring in the first 20, I think that's really what's going to happen, especially if you keep the Seattle off the board in the first 45. I do think it'll probably be 1-1. Not like us. I hope we don't concede in the last minute, but I do think it would be a goal in the first 45. I think both teams will score. But, man, out of either Portland or Seattle, given that Portland has had a pretty good run over the last couple of games and that it's the next game in a 2-day road trip in the Northwest, this seems the more likely game where you could get 3 points. If you get 3 points, which is still big if against the Northwest teams.
And I want to say I agree with the 1-1. That was my pick also. And I want to say that I want to point out that going to Seattle, we're more optimistic about this game than we normally would be against a normal Seattle encounter. And let's face it, Seattle's going through that that CONCACAF slide that every team that makes a run in CONCACAF has. They look like they were avoiding it, but the bottom line is that MLS rosters aren't built for deep runs in other competitions. There's just not that many players. So once you get out of that, once you make that run and get back to MLS play, and then you still got the U.S. Open Cup, it adds significant game load to these players and fatigue and minor injuries, and it shows. And I think that's all it is. It's still Seattle. They're still a better team than FC Dallas, but you have to wonder how many of those players are playing at 100%. How many of those players are playing with nagging injuries or are simply fatigued and will basically be like Hara, giving you 45 minutes and then be tanked out. So that gives us hope. That and the fact that FC Dallas beat Seattle during the year, that's big. I know it was a rotated squad, but you got to be able, your players knowing that they can beat Seattle, any Seattle team, that's a massive confidence builder for a young team to say, hey, we've done it before. We can do it again. We can get a result.
And they played well on the road. They played well on the road. I mean, except for the Kansas
So-
City game and during that, that fall thing. But generally, they played well on the road. I expect to see Hara at the top and Jesus back in the. I expect to see the same formation that we saw Saturday. And I expect
after
them
these
to
two
come out and
games-
play a good game. Yeah, go ahead.
If after these 2 games, FC Dallas comes back home with 2 or 3 points, it's a successful trip.
If they get a goal, I think it'll be a similar game to Saturday where they get the goal and they hunker in. We'll see.
I'll take it.
If we're putting bets on what game we would win, it would be Seattle for me because Portland haven't lost in the last 8 games, and they've scored 18 times. And for a team like us that relies on gritty defensiveness, I don't think you can defend gritty and succeed not conceding when a team just scored 4 goals. Like Portland's not good defensively, but they will score more goals than you, and that's how they would win games. So if we're looking for a victory, I think it would be the Seattle game, honestly, which is a weird thing
I
to
agree
say.
with you. I agree with you, and the only hope that gives me against Portland, even though I agree that they are the toughest 2 teams, is the fact that they will also play midweek and will also be fatigued. And yes, I expect Dallas to be more fatigued and have less depth than Portland, but the fact that they'll be fatigued too should at least give us a chance that we normally would not have.
And I think the other thing we need to watch out is what happens with Sean in the next few days, if he gets sold or not. And if he doesn't get sold, I think there's no reason you can tell me why he hasn't played at all this year, because I've seen enough of that guy to say that he's good enough to get some minutes this year, and the fact that he's got none tells me
I
there's
agree,
more to
but
the
players
story.
get in coach's doghouse for whatever reason, and by all accounts, he simply was not performing in practice. I mean, he looked good when he got given minutes, but Nico's a big, practice well, get minutes type, and you're seeing that as a theme, from North Texas to SC Dallas. Practice well, get rewarded. Practice well, get rewarded. And by all accounts, Shun is not practicing well. He's gone too much. He's missing too much time. He's not getting the concept. He's simply in the doghouse, and that's not going to change this year.
He may have also eaten the Monster Burger, and I think maybe that's slowing him down.
One too many.
Where's
Oh
that
my
sold?
gosh,
Like,
that is just
seriously,
ridiculous. I mean,
where's that
oh my
sold?
God.
I need to know.
That is a new
For
Monster
Texas-
Burger that they're promoting. I think it's like $15. I think if you buy the stuff separately, you could probably get it cheaper. But why? Why would you even get that?
'Cause this is Texas. That's like that's an
It's bigger in
abomination.
Texas.
It's like, why? Yeah, why not? That's kind of the text. Why? Why not? Why wouldn't we?
After
too
enough
much.
beer, you're gonna say, that looks pretty yummy.
$15? No way.
Yeah, where is that sold, Tommy? Is that in like the main?
I think it's a new thing that they're going to be selling at the stadium.
Oh, okay. So you don't know.
They have a new
exactly.
chef, that is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way it sounded.
All right. Well,
By the way, that MLS All-Star jersey looks like garbage. That's my last thing.
good. All right.
Agreed.
Well, good. Well, let's leave it there for tonight. We'll be, of course, uploading the audio version of this, so get it wherever you subscribe to podcasts. We're grateful for everybody joining us. Christian, thanks for your comments. And, we'll be back. Here we go. Here's a good. So, yeah, Tommy, you should buy one and try it on camera next podcast. So maybe when you go get it at the game, you can do like a recorded video of.
There you go.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
I'll have to charge my battery up because sometimes it takes quite a while to get your food.
No.
Hey, but I agree. It should be like a review. Like you can be our food taster.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll think about it. We'll see.
Take one for the team. Yeah. All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night, guys.
All right.
All right. See you.
Good night, guys.